Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, as you know. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Now, this morning, chiefs have been endorsing candidates, particularly presidential candidates. In fact, at the presidency, we are told that 95% of chiefs in the country, all the chiefs in the country, have endorsed President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. This is in the face of a constitutional injunction, which some of the chiefs now say is not exactly what we interpret it to be. The Constitution says chiefs shall not participate or do active partisan politics. We ask the question today, is this good? There are also independent candidates, particularly for the parliamentary elections. This is not the first time, but we seem to see an increasing number of persons from specific political parties deciding to break out and contest as independent candidates. Is that good or not? An MP has been murdered. That's yet another murder. We ask whether this will be solved or will remain unsolved as that of J.B. Dankwa Edu. But is this the time to consider increased security, particularly for the MPs? We ride back to deal with the vexed matters. Welcome once again to Newsfile, and I title my take, Suicide by Bad Law. It is a good feeling that the state takes such interest in your life. It protects your life to the extent if another person intentionally takes your life, i.e. commits murder, the state sentences him to death. If the person only attempted to kill or killed unintentionally, the state may put him in prison for the rest of his life unless some good reason warrants a lesser sentence. The 1960 law even expects that if your intention is to cause unlawful harm to someone, just make sure there is no intention to cause death. Otherwise, it will hold you guilty for manslaughter. That's how much the state claims to love you to safeguard your life from being taken by another. And that's why the many years of crusade to abolish the death penalty has failed in Ghana. Never mind that our presidents have refused to sign the death warrants, so those sentenced will be killed. The state insists your life is sacred and inviolable, so only God must take it without sanctions. If you decided to take it yourself, the state calls that suicide and may throw you into jail for 3 years. So, unless you succeed, you will be punished. You will be punished for only trying and not actually killing yourself. Check that. But who in their right state of mind would decide to commit suicide? It is proving that anybody who contemplates suicide has a special situation and needs special care. The World Health Organization reports every 40 seconds, one person commits suicide. Yes, every 40 seconds, one person commits suicide. It is said to be the second leading cause of death. Guess among what category of persons? Among those between the ages of 15 and 29. And it is the leading cause of death among teenage girls between 15 and 19. Did you pay attention to that? So obviously, what such people need from a state that professes love and protection for them is not prosecution. Mental health specialists tell us the thought of being prosecuted and jailed for not fully executing a suicide mission actually encourages suicide, as the law does not and cannot punish the dead. That is, if you succeeded in committing the suicide, there's no punishment. It is only when you failed or you changed your mind in the process of trying to kill yourself, then you'll be punished by the law. What sense does this law make? On the occasion of Mental Health Day today, can Ghana demonstrate genuine commitment to amend Section 57 of the Criminal Offences Act because it simply does not make sense? Decriminalizing suicide is such a simple and worthy thing to do. So why the many years of talk without action? October is Mental Health Month. My plea to you is that don't be part of the global statistic of people killing themselves, committing suicide every 40 seconds. And you check the range of people involved, very young people. There is help. Get a mental health checkup right now. May our state prove this special love and protection for us by prioritizing improving mental health care, presently in a very sorry state. That's my take. Let me now introduce you to my guest to have this discussion this morning. And we will be looking at the very unfortunate murder of a member of parliament. And as you know, we all got up yesterday taken by such, surprise and very, very bad news. This morning, Abdul Malik Baako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, joins us in the studio. He's a regular panelist. And Professor Aning, who is director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, will tell us whether or not the shooting and killing of the Infantiman MP is an opportunity to begin to talk about the matter of providing security for the MPs. There are some who have always kicked against that. Will people change their mind now that MPs are being killed and the MPs tell us that they are becoming afraid, they are scared for their life? This time it is Echo Kwanzaa Hayford, the MP for Infantiman, who was, shot and killed in circumstance that people are trying to make sense of. Now, let's listen to the regional police PR and then also this footage we have put together about the NP.
October 2020. Now about an 11:40 day. na police enya 11:40 p.m. The Mankesim Divisional Police Command had an information that there was a robbery going on an outstretch between Dominase and then Mankesim. That is the highway from Mankesim to Kumasi. So police proceeded to the scene and met a lot of passengers with cars parked who narrated that they were attacked by robbers at the scene. We also had the information that the MP for Infansiman, that is Honorable Eko Kwanza, was also a victim in that robbery and he was shot dead. Currently, the body is at the morgue for preservation and also autopsy. Again, persons who were injured have been sent to the hospital, and for now we can confirm that it's only the MP who has passed on. All other injured are at the hospital. We are appealing to the general public that, as we all know, police will move with information. Anybody who have information about these incidents concerning the perpetrators involved, we are appealing to them to liaise with the nearest police station. Give us the information that will help to facilitate our investigations. Again, currently the Regional Police Command has instructed and also taken over investigations from Mankesim Divisional Headquarters, and investigations will be carried on at the Regional CID. So the case is still under investigation.
For him to die the way that he did should clearly call attention to the need for maximum security for politically exposed persons, particularly members of parliament. The way it stands now, if you are in the executive or you are in the judiciary, you have access to state-provided security. But those of us who are not, we are left on our own. And I think it is becoming one too many. I think it is about time that we as a people make the commitment to ensure that those that we select to lead us are also given the needed protection, because without this, it is going to make it very difficult for more people with the right competencies and abilities to step up.
I'm even short of words. I don't even know the type of words that to use. It's quite very discouraging to even some of us who voluntarily put ourselves up as citizens of Ghana to lead our various constituencies in the country.
When you look at the spate of insecurity in the country these days, just about a month now, it's becoming scary, and everybody is being scared of their life. So you'll be there and your family will call you, hey, be careful, do this, as if we are now living in a situation or a community or environment where if care is not taken, things will go uncontrollably.
We as members of parliament also need security. It is important we pass the laws that are putting restrictions on movement and the work of criminals. So we are always the target of the criminals. So why are you giving the judge the police because he passed the judgment? Why are you giving the minister, the deputy minister, the security to protect themselves? But those of us who sit and pass the laws before the laws are sent to the judicial service for implementation, I'd rather not being protected.
The level of insecurity in Ghana now cannot be again said. We live in a country where people can have the courage to walk into a court and attack a sitting judge and yet go scot-free. We live in a country where a sitting MP, J.B. Dankwaidu, was murdered in a cold blood. We live in a country where a professor was killed. We live in a country where MP was announced to have been killed in a very tragic circumstances.
Baako is back.
The change now say you to Accra by around by 7:30, 7:45. Accra. Then the about was it. See about yɛ branch o Mankashim road bi a da hɔ a His Excellency na dan kwakofado the road no mo ɛso ɔma bie mu nti no asa ɛkwan no mo so ti aba baby di domrase ɛwɔ mfante hello
mpacho yetio
ahoy baby di domrase ɛhɔ obɛfo no wasane nti aso ɔma bɛyɛ China for bi ɔmo yɛ kwan no ɔma bɛbɔ we bi hɔ no ma ɔmo hɔ no ma ɔmo ɛyɛ kwan no ti ɛba yɛ de ma bɛyɛ sɛ yaba bɛyɛ sɛ 100 meters away to the incident no ana yɛ driver no hu sɛ cars na pake the happen na wɔyɛ fast then ɔtɛne to the Mankasim as a obi a yɛkɔ yɛba ɔboase no to hu sɛ sɛ ɔsa tɛne yɛ na ɔsa na ne kyerɛ Mankasim back ti hɔ na yɛte sɛ etu akasa ɛwɔ yɛ car n'akyi pay more than 3-4 times ana daba na kakyɛ sɛ ɛyɛ armed robbers ti deɛ ɛwɔ car no mu nyinaa no obiara seki ti deɛ ne yɛbɔ mpa yɛ sɛ ɛbɛde mmoa yɛn na wɔnyɛ fisa incident because mu bi sada
enti na mo car ni di MP ne car n'akyi ana na ka cars na etu kwan ne ho
yɛ car no ni MP car n'akyi
okay
yɛ nam road no so a yɛkɔ yɛ traffic from Obuasi to Accra to Obuasi
okay
enti ya asa kopie ade no so enti na like cars na pake nti ohun sɛ traffic no a block isa no ohun sɛ car bi across it to one way fast and not 10 years because driver no yɛ Obuasi driver it onim road no so.
All right, so you've heard some MPs speak. First, the police, regional police PRO, speak about it as to what they know and what is being done. As you know, that some experts have been sent there from Accra to take over the investigations and ensure that things are done quite swiftly. It sounds a very normal, refrain that when some important person, quote unquote, is killed in these ways, we get these announcements. But the question is, what has been the result? So, and then an amount of 20,000 cedis reward has been put up, awaiting anybody who will give information that will lead to the arrest of those involved. And then you had MPs telling us about how they feel afraid, and some of them also doing the usual politics with the situation. And then we had the narration from this individual who sort of witnessed what was going on. In that interview with Mama Vio Uswabwaji in Chi, and summarily rendered, he was simply saying that they were behind them somewhat, and so saw that on this particular road there had been a roadblock mounted, and it was discovered that armed robbers were the ones operating at the place and had mounted the roadblock. And so the driver took a decision to turn back, and when he turned, things didn't work. So eventually, this is what happened. The accounts we have heard is simply that the armed robbers now moved to their car, and the NP identified himself. After identifying himself, the one who shot said, "You guys are the ones who are making things difficult for us in this country," and then just shot him. So that's what happened. Let's listen to the Speaker of Parliament, and then we'll do the discussion.
All of us here. And I want to assure you, members of the House, every effort made by the law enforcement agencies to apprehend quickly the perpetrators of this heinous crime. I want to reassure you further that government will continue to take and intensify all appropriate measures to guarantee the safety of members and citizens of our country as we all go about our lawful duties, especially during this period of democratic accountability. May God bless the members of Parliament and us all, and may God bless our homeland Ghana and make it great and strong. Nana Addo Dankwa.
Are passed with all 375 CNS troops. Probably God has accepted your prayer. That is why we've not had any natural incident. But this unnatural murder of a member of Parliament, it happened to J.B. Dankwa. The perpetrators have not been identified. They have not been punished. But, Mr. Speaker, it raised an issue that members of Parliament were our own enemies. There is public distrust. Sometimes there's even public outrage. We have suffered physical attacks. We've suffered verbal attacks, but not deadly attacks. Not one that results in death. You can say you are not happy with the way we are contributing to your welfare, but once he loses their life, that's it. What more can he do? But, Mr. Speaker, the public, when we engage them, they will say that members of Parliament, yes, we are asking for the safety and security of every Ghanaian. We are only additionally asking that given the risk of the job we do, we are given self-protection and personal protection. That must be done by the Inspector General of Police and the Minister for Interior. Mr. Speaker, we control their purse. If they refuse to provide for it, there will be an appropriation bill into next year. We will do what is appropriate, needfully, and lawfully, because our lives matter, and lives of members of Parliament matter.
I'm respectfully directing that the Honourable Minister for Interior should appear in this Honourable House on Tuesday to assure the safety of Honourable members, particularly with reference to those words which apparently provoked this dastardly act. The Honourable Minister is hereby invited to come, make explanation, give assurances for the protection of honourable members, so that honourable members may advise themselves as they think fit in all the circumstances.
Right, so you heard the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament and then the Minority Leader, Haruna Idrisu. So, Koku, this is where we come, and the way Mr. Hayford was killed, we are thrown back to a discussion that we have ritually when these matters come up. On Tuesday, the 9th of February 2016, J.B. Dankwa Edu, we woke up in the morning and that's what we were told. The very promising MP was killed in his house. We went through this discussion. We are back at it. What do you say?
First of all, my condolences to the family and the party that he belongs to, Parliament, and of course all of us. Losing a legislator is a loss to the entire nation, not just its constituents. Right. And one would have wished that we didn't come back to discuss this subject matter within the same context, in the sense of the murder of Mr. Hayford. But here we are. I recall vividly when the J.B. Dankwa thing happened. We were here. Yeah. We subjected it to some interrogation. And Parliament also did. Indeed, they suspended parliamentary session for a while. And then the day they resumed, it was a subject matter like we've just seen. Aruna Drusu, Chairman Sambonsu, all of them making statements and calling for protection, some security protection for members of the legislature. And you know, that's a very unpopular request or demand. Anytime it happens, it's like the S. Gracia thing. Once you throw it out into the public domain on the streets, members of parliament lose. But here we are back again to deal with the same issue, where a life of a legislator has been terminated. See, this is the second time in terms of fatalities, as long as my memory serves me right. I may be wrong. Under the Fourth Republic, I recall J.B. Dankwa and then this incident. But there have also been incidents where members of parliament were attacked. Right. For instance, one Mr. Joseph Kojo Ofori, I think 29th October 2013, this is a GNA report. He was attacked in his residence, Tama Community 18, by armed robbers. There was a time in 2006, August 2006, when Asabi, Asamoah Boateng, and Osei Ajay, they were ministers, but they were also members of parliament. They were also attacked by armed robbers in the Kumasi, I think it was Osei Ajay's residence. And each time these things happen, the issue of security protection for members of the legislature comes up. But then there's a counter. The counter is
a more recent one, the MP for Inshaeso, Kennedy Kwesi Kankam.
Yes.
He says in 2019, he and his family were held for almost 3 hours by armed robbers.
Yes, and I'm sure there are many others we forgot momentarily, but I believe so. You know, but any time that issue comes up and the request or demand for security protection comes up, there's a counter. And the counter doesn't come from just the ordinary people, incidentally. There are also security analysts who raise issues. For instance, there's an example here. We can't give MPs police protection. Sowati. This is a security analyst, Mr. Emmanuel Sowati, has rejected suggestions of providing personal police protection for parliamentarians in the country. He was reacting, of course, to what members of parliament had been saying. I think Chairman Samson, in the wake of Boache Dankwa Edu's death. His point was that there are 275. It's extremely difficult, if not impossible, from the financial point of view to undertake that kind of exercise. You had a situation where one other MP, his view was that, well, if you cannot protect us, he says, buy guns for your protection. Afote agbo to MPs. Very desperate one. Not exactly wrong if it's licensed and all that for your protection at home, self-defense and all that. But this was coming.
You and I know, almost all of them have licensed guns.
Yes, yes. But it's not sufficient defense.
That's right.
Especially if you are enclosed with your family and all those, to engage in any gun battle with armed robbers, you know, very determined ones. So we have an issue to tackle. What form should the security protection take? See, we have the institutional security. For instance, Parliament, there's now a police post there. And I'm sure they may have CCTV and all those things installed. That's right. So in terms of the corporate body, Parliament, the institutional security, I think we are doing something about it and progressing. There's also, you know, the residential security. I may be using wrong words. The security analysts may have a better description. But when I say security, residential security, I'm talking of the domestic, them being at home. Don't forget, we don't have a parliamentary village.
Right.
Something we used to have earlier in the first phase of Fourth Republic Parliament. Right. But we sold them out to some of them, even to the MPs themselves.
That's right.
Yes. And so they are not in a gated community where we can have a certain corporate approach towards providing residential security. They live in different areas. Yeah. All of them in Accra. Of course, they have, when they go to their constituencies, they'll come there too. But they're here and they are scattered. So there's a challenge as to how it can be done. But of course, there are solutions. Mobile police patrols, constant ones here and there could help. When the armed robbers know that this there is this mobility and visibility of the security agencies in these areas, they can be, it serves as a certain deterrent.
That's right.
I'm not talking absolute terms, but it could help. So the residential security element is a bit challenging, but it is not impossible to operationalize, in my candid opinion. A more difficult one, and is related to election security, is the campaign security. It's a subset. This is a classic case where the member of parliament has gone out to do campaign with his colleagues. The timing of the campaign, all those things are important. How do you go about that? I know the presidential and vice presidential candidates are giving some sort of support over a period. They embed security and police forces in those campaign teams. I'm not sure.
Once the Electoral Commission confirms that you are a candidate.
Exactly.
So like they announced yesterday, all these 17 potential presidential candidates, once they are cleared that they are candidates, the state will go to their aid by providing them security.
Exactly. I'm not sure that is done for members of parliament or parliamentary candidates, but campaign security, how do we formulate it? What kind of format? The campaigner himself ought to have some protective ideas, some ideas. And this is a tricky area. You are not careful, you may be...
So those of you watching on television, what you are seeing is the MP's vehicle.
Wow.
With blood all over it. That's the MP's vehicle.
So he was shot while he was in the vehicle?
Yes. So as you can see, in the vehicle you see in the seats, then you see blood all over the seats, and then by the door as well. Looks like even both doors you have blood all over them. Right.
Honestly, I didn't know.
And look at the tire. It's been shot several times. You see bullet holes in the car tire. Yeah, very clearly.
Wow. I thought, because one eyewitness account, and I think I heard it on Joy, I thought he was supposed to have come out of the vehicle and introduced himself.
That's what.
But
that's the account we're giving.
Yeah, but this one, it appears he was in the car when he was first shot. Whatever it is, and was also in a party car. Interesting.
Okay, so let's just take this narration again and give perspective to what we are seeing on television once again. Let's listen to this.
So immediately the MP arrived. He didn't know what has happened. So he arrived where the driver and asked him what is happening. And when he saw that and that is why he went into a ditch here. He went into a ditch here. So when that time the MP had been hit because he was shot from the driver's side. So the driver was hit in the two hands. So he lost control of the vehicle and he went to a ditch here. So the MP got down and limping. He wanted to enter the bush and they shot him from the back at the waist level and he fell here. So he arrived here and so he was breathing here and this is where he fell. So this is the blood. So he fell here and unfortunately bled to death. So that was exactly what happened.
So this was his last place?
Yes, here, this very place. In fact, when we came, the blood stain was plenty. It is only this rain that is washing it away. So that was what happened.
So your point is that you had a number of vehicles?
Yes, that time about 18 cars have been stopped here because the robbers stopped those cars.
Robbers in front of the car that has been used to block and robbers at the back as well?
Yes, they were 6 in number.
So some here, some...
So some were right here, some were in the middle, and some were at the far corner where our car with the siren and other things, yes. So that was how they positioned themselves.
You are saying when the outrider,
yes,
the MP's outrider,
yes,
came all the way, the MP also followed him?
Yes, but he was leading. So by the time the MP appeared at that place, the robber has marched the guy up to the middle there. So when MP arrived there, the rider was standing, and one of the robbers was behind him with a gun. So when the MP asked, rider, what is happening? What is happening? The guy was afraid, he couldn't talk. And so MP turned around, so then he said, driver, drive through. So he decided to meander his way up to this level, and he was shot here. So they were firing from all angles. So when we go to the car, you will see pellet holes everywhere on the car. But the one that got him first was shot from the driver's side. So he hit the driver in the two hands on the sear. So he lost control and hit the MP. But when we checked, we saw that from where the MP side, he was also hit because there were several shots there. So he got down here, wanted to enter the bush. Then they shot him and he fell here.
And how did they get there?
But when we arrived, they have moved it there. So I want to believe it was the people, perhaps the sympathizers or party members who came to the scene, moved it there.
But otherwise, it was immobilized here?
Yes. In fact, we could have met it just here.
Okay.
All right, Koku. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So tragic. Huh? Yeah. So, but I think I was on the question of campaign security.
Right.
Which this is a classic example.
You were asking whether you were not sure if MPs are giving that sort of security that is given to the presidential candidate.
Yes, I have my doubts.
We know for a fact that they don't give them.
Yes, I believe so.
Right.
So what does the MP or the parliamentary candidate do? What should you do in terms of protecting yourself? And this is why I said I was going to be very careful, because it's a very thin line. You are not careful, you may be legitimizing party vigilantism. Mm-hmm. You may be creating an avenue for, okay, we're going to have our own security, we'll have our own strong guys and all that. You ask yourself, what's the difference?
But we have heard them say that.
Yes.
Somebody like John Wedu has been very clear about that he almost lost his life, and no amount of persuasion will convince him that he should not take his own personal security, the way he wants it. Yeah.
Why you can have a personal security if they are individuals, but there's a risk element of them transforming into a group. Okay, that's the temptation, and indeed that is how some of these party vigilante groups started. Some are party members, friends, they are good, they are strong. Some are retired soldiers or retired policemen. They decide to protect their candidates or their chairman or general secretary. In the process, they congregate, they get orders to join. Then they began to form a movement of a sort, and then their conduct and misconduct flies in the face of the law. That's what we've gone through. So I'm very careful there as to what kind of proposal I even make because of our history, the experience we've gone through. But it doesn't stop us from finding intelligent and creative ways in collaboration with the state to see that, look, these things are done. I was reading this document. It comes from a group called, the African Institute for Crime, Policy and Governance Research. And they were doing an analysis of, crime rates, in terms of murder and robbery. These are two major ones that create public panic and things. And they did the statistics from 2012 to 2018. Yesterday, I got the police to give me 2012 to 2019. They couldn't give me 2020. But the key point that I picked from this document, which was co-authored by Dr. Justice Tankebi and Dr. Kofi Boachi, very dated January 2019, very, very important for people to get access to such documents, is that once they give the absolute numbers in terms of the murder and robbery, they came back to see a point that, look, it's not so much the absolute numbers in terms of the statistical understanding, but the hot spots, where do these crimes take place, and what they call the hot times. Because the police is limited in terms of resource capability. also in terms of numbers. We all know we are still striving to meet the UN standard, which is supposed to be 1 for 500, every 500 police personnel. Right. So the point they were making was that in view of the fact that you have limited capability and resources relative to police operations, we should be by now identifying hotspots and hot times. Okay, where and when do these things usually happen?
For the elections, they have done so.
Okay.
They know the hotspots. The police knows the hotspots for the purposes of the elections.
Yes, but I'm talking here campaigning,
right,
which is subset of the election security architecture. You see, this classic case, it's difficult. Sometimes it's easier just making theories out of such situations. Okay, sometimes it's easy. People like us who come to sit here, it's very easy to make the analysis and let it look as if, look, it is easy to deal with the matter. Why is it fact it is perhaps easier said than done? Because who could have predicted, unless there is a history of robbery on where this incident happened? I don't know. If there's a history there that these things do happen here, and maybe late night or midnight or early dawn, then obviously it should be identified as a hotspot. And the time, hot time, so that mobile police patrols, if not static, could be part of the cure.
Right.
Okay, but you see, we're talking now of the nation. Big, let's be honest, territorially, it's a huge assignment, but not impossible. So it perhaps means that it is how we equip our police system, the service.
Okay.
What resources do we give to them? What training do we give to them? What equipment do we give to them? It's not easy. It's easy for an analyst like me.
Professor Aning briefly
thank you.
Comes back. Professor Aning, thank you very much for making the time to join us.
Hello. Yes, it's a great pleasure.
Great. So you followed what happened in Parliament. This ritual, how much faith do you have in it? That it happens and they summon, and right now the Speaker says the Interior Minister is summoned to come there and give them assurances of their security. The President himself has said that the security should act quick and get the perpetrators. From where I sit, it does sound like this is ritual talk. It doesn't get us that much.
Well, thank you very much. Let me begin by expressing, similar to Kweku, my deepest condolences first to the family. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible incident. But also to the people of our dear country, Ghana, precisely because of the signal this murder sends about public safety and security in Ghana. But before I get to the ritualized expressions of we need protection for a segment of the population as against the generality of the population, I want to make a couple of points. First, relating to our appreciation and understanding of the types of threats that we face and the quality of the assessments that we make to be able to respond to and to prevent those threats, and to shift from a more reactive to a proactive set of interventions predicated on the use of intelligence. The second relates to the easy availability, proliferation, and use of small arms and light weapons. And I think you and I have spoken about these issues so many times that I truly sound like a broken record. The third issue is about the state of public safety. And I want to respond to Kweku's great point about election security and campaign security. But I want to add something small to it. It's about the issue of, first, the sensitivity and the knowledge that should be routinely available in terms of first aid and how to use first aid. Now, Kweku, if you remember, several years ago, I think there was a trip from Togo towards Accra, where there was a presidential convoy that got into an accident and some people died precisely because there was no ambulance in the convoy, and then some people also bled to death. Since that tragic incident, and also when Mr. Kufuor's car overturned his armored vehicle, overturned, we don't seem to have learned from all those nearly tragic incidents about the role of first aid in our own vehicles. I think the rules and regulations around car registration in Ghana talks about the need for a first aid kit. If I'm correct.
You're right.
The final point relates to the role of intelligence. We tend to think that intelligence must be some highly specialized use of information that only a segment of the population can have access to or can undertake. Granted that, yes, there are certain aspects of it that are very key. So let me start with the threat assessments first. And here I want to piggyback on Kweku's point about election security and campaign security. When one lives in a country where its neighbors, small arms flows, unemployment, a sense of exclusion is predominant, why and how do emerging threats manifest themselves? And here the statement by one of those who had access to guns and shot this MP is very poignant. The selection and targeting of particular individuals. And here I think I heard some MP talking about politically exposed persons. Politically exposed persons is not about the fact that you are in a certain position and therefore somebody wants to kill you. It's actually related to corruption. You see, so I think we need to be able to use the terminologies properly and not conflate them. That somebody is shot because it's a politically exposed person and is campaigning. No, except what that MP meant was that there's an element of corruption in this particular matter, which I don't think was the idea. So threat assessment, we need to get it well. And Kweku's point about the expanse of the country, issues of logistics, manpower are all very key. And it is because of that threat assessments are key, because that then leads us to say what types of law enforcement actions will lead to the types of desired results. Last week, if I remember correctly, the Central Regional Minister, Duncan, was quite worried about the levels of crime, I think, in Kaswa and Budubura. So that either the Regional Security Council of the Central Region has been concerned about levels of crime, and these are not crimes that, just happen. These are firearms-related crimes. So there's a problem with availability of small arms, how it is registered, who has them, levels of concentration, the types of crimes that they are used for. Now, we know that crime and its relationship to small arms, has been growing because it's really very easy to get access to these guns. So let me talk a bit about the firearms, because one of the things that this conversation we are not talking about relates to where do these guns come from? How do people get access to them? What are the numbers that we are talking about? Small arms proliferation in Ghana, it's widespread, both as a hub for the sale and transshipment across our boundaries, but also certainly as a place where people come in to purchase these guns. So there are several towns in Ghana where one can have easy access to these guns, but also more disturbingly, the local manufacturing of these guns. So we need to get a better grasp of this point. When members of parliament raise their voices about insecurity and invite the minister to appear before them, whilst it's useful, also gives a sense of unease. Okay? How many murders have been committed in Ghana in the last, say, 6 months? And how often has the minister been invited? How often has Parliament raised issues of insecurity, general insecurity, or firearms-related insecurity on the floor of the House? Or how often does the Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Interior discuss these issues? Now, to go back to the last couple of weeks, when the attacks in Volta region happened, I think a coconut seller was shot, mistakenly. One would have thought that with that particular incident, there ought to have been an emergency session, because the whole region was attacked, about 5-6 towns, a police station raided, almost 14 guns stolen, but we didn't hear Parliament's voice. Now, that creates a certain concern as to what Parliament thinks of the security of the general populace, but even more disturbingly, a wide swathe of Ghana that had been attacked and criminal actions undertaken. Now, precisely because of the challenge of small arms, not only in Ghana, but in West Africa, Ghana, as a signatory to the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms, has been enjoined both by ECOWAS, but certainly by a cabinet decision to establish the Ghana National Small Arms Commission. The cabinet memo stated specifically that the National Commission should be a regulator. Unfortunately, we have a National Commission that only plays an advisory role, therefore incapable and doesn't have the teeth to regulate the import, the distribution, the marking, the tracing, the stockpile management of small arms.
Who does? Who has the regulatory mandate right now? And why is that entity not doing well that you would wish that the Small Arms Commission would rather do that?
Well, there's almost no. The regulatory powers are located within the Ministry of Interior. So let the death of J.B. Dankwa.
The Ministry of Interior, working with the IGP, only grants you the license to either import or hold arms and, so to speak. So what is the regulation really about? And the law requires that there should be...
We need the National Commission on Small Arms to regulate who gets the licenses. Okay, now it only plays an advisory role. Okay, so if these murders, these two murders by parliamentarians, should teach a lesson, and it's only parliamentarians and the politicians who can change this, then they should equip and read to the National Commission to act as a regulator, independent, capable of saying.
The Small Arms Commission has oftentimes complained about the millions of guns, in hands that are not regulated. But the laws of this country require that the current process, as we have it, there's supposed to be a register. So if you are getting a gun and you are licensing it at any police station, we will have a national register where we know who has registered a gun and who has not renewed it at what time or the other. What differently would the Small Arms Commission do from what the present arrangement is in fighting the situation? Because we know that even under the current situation, there are thousands of guns unregistered.
Yes. No, I mean, there are lots of guns that are unregistered, precisely because less than 10 to 15% of guns that were registered initially comes back for the annual registration. Okay, that leaves a huge gap, and I think Kweku made this very great point about the capacity gaps or the challenges that the police service, for example, faces. Now, I am focusing and I'm concerned about gun availability, our import histories, plus the regulation of who should get a license, who can check when licenses have been renewed, and where these guns are. Precisely because the Small Arms Commission plays an advisory role. I mean, you can only add so much. People can decide to take it or not to take it. But that shift from an advisory to a regulatory role for the National Commission can only be done by the passage of law into law by Parliament.
The Commission has told us. The Commission has told us that in Ghana we have about 2.3 million firearms in private hands, and out of that number, 47% is unaccounted for. It tells me that they have the capacity to do some work. They simply may not have been able to do the work.
Well, we did the research for them with Japanese funding in 2014, 2015, when the document came out. I mean, when I say we, I'm talking about the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center, where we have specific dedicated courses on small arms management, border security. So one is to get the data that disaggregates where these guns are, what types, the ages of these guns, the levels of attrition, which we placed at 20%, that for these 2.3 million guns, if more guns don't come into the system over a 5-year period, we would see around 20% of them having been destroyed, stolen, lost, or what. The challenge for the Commission is that, yes, these figures are out in the public domain. We've managed to demonstrate which magazines and armories are well built, follows the international regulations. How do they take this data and then insist that people follow the rules, the laws, and that institutions are given the teeth, to manage small arms and light weapons in Ghana? So if we take the work that they've done with respect to the marking of guns that are available in Ghana, that allows the Commission then to be able to trace when these guns are lost.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work that we need to do relating to firearms availability. because all these crimes relating both to parliamentarians and ordinary people, and then the great point about election and campaign security this year, is that most of those threats will come from people's availability or people's access to firearms.
Okay, so sorry, but I come back to that issue because I think that it's an area that the state doesn't seem to have paid sufficient attention to, or put in the necessary safeguards and solutions as far as small arms and weapons are concerned. And the reference to 2.3 million of these in private hands, and this you talk about, we are actually talking about research that was done sometime in 2014, and at the time we were told that there had been as much as 850% increase in the number of firearms in circulation in Ghana. We understand that about $3 trillion is spent each day in purchasing arms globally, and our part of the world is signaled to be one place where some of the guns come in. What should be done? Because once the guns are out there, and as at that time, even when they put the 2.3 million firearms in private hands and 47% unaccounted for, they said the number could actually be higher than that.
Yes.
So what do we do? What must we do concretely to avoid this situation where there are arms in people's homes and people's hands, and yet we don't know about it?
No, I think it's information, public information. And in all the 850% increase in availability is related to the original baseline survey.
Right.
That myself and Sowate and Imabrekwan did in 2004 for the government of Ghana and the UNDP.
2014? 14?
No, the original baseline survey was done in 2004.
Oh, I see.
So there are two baseline surveys.
Right.
Having a decade, the difference from the original baseline survey 2004-5, and then the last one 2014, I think, presented in 2015.
Right.
So there seems to be a certain romanticization around getting access to these guns and then using them. Okay.
Yeah. So my point basically, we have seen armed robbers. They have shot in broad daylight. They have gone into shops, held people hostage and shot right here in Ghana. They sped off and we couldn't arrest them and all of these things. So that's the thing. For as long as the arms are out there and we do not know who is holding them, we are at risk.
No, we are at a major risk. You see, and that is why this conversation should focus not only on the terribly unfortunate murder of my former student, but also on the dynamic. We need to understand the demand side. Why do people demand for these guns? And what are the dynamics driving demand? But even more importantly, the supply side. You see, because when we tend to take a very simplified approach to this, we overlook some of the critical dynamics. Now, and I'm happy Kweku is in the studio still. Now, several years ago, when Kofi Boakye was the police commander in Kumasi, he unraveled a transnational organized criminal group that were bringing in guns from as far as the Democratic Republic of Congo. There were people bringing in guns from La Côte d'Ivoire and elsewhere. We are one of the major importers of industrial explosives. Okay? So there is something that both makes us a demand-driven enclave with respect to small arms, but certainly also supplying those who need these guns. Okay, and I think it would be good if you get access to the 2015 or 2014 report, because we spent quite substantial amount of time looking at the quality of armories in Ghana or the magazines, looking at levels of leakages and the types of stockpile management that would protect all of us. With the exception of the military, we made specific recommendations as to how armories and magazines security could be improved. So if we look at the leakages and the types of guns used in crime and medicine in Ghana, they are the industrially manufactured guns, that is the AK-47s that the secessionists stole, the pump action guns, and then the locally manufactured guns, which over time are also becoming more and more effective. So that the management of our small arms becomes very central in the general protection of the citizenry.
Professor
members of parliament.
Professor Kwesieni, maybe my very final question on the area of the proliferation of small arms, because you mentioned proliferation of arms, and you spoke about same as unlicensed being a major threat. Now, in my professional life, I've had the opportunity to deal with something in this regard, and I discover how the system doesn't seem to be that good. That even someone who wants to sort of surrender a gun has a lot of difficulty, and they may decide that, look, forget it, I'd rather keep it rather than surrender, because I want to surrender and I have to go through, frustration. And you have officers who have suggestions to you, even when you want to surrender it nicely. They have suggestions, because some of them are rather the persons who will direct those who need them to purchase. Now the armed robberies have continued to increase. In 2016, 2017, we saw the numbers that went up, and I think we're giving as much as 26.8% increase in armed robberies and murders. And it was directly linked to the arms that is in private hands. I don't know what the current figures are as far as the increase, but what would you advise that the IGP, the Interior Minister, the Small Arms Commission, and maybe some leadership from the presidency should do as, a quick measure to try to rein in this situation?
Well, the approach by the state of Ghana in terms of small arms and light weapons proliferation comes with quite some challenges. One is the legislation itself. The legislation really does not capture the complexity and the changing dynamics of small arms availability and proliferation. So the basic rules, I think, are from 1962 and 1972. So we need to look at the legislation. The second relates to the interventions that the state over time has sought to implement. Now, one is the weapons buyback programs. So if you remember, under President Kufuor, there was this massive program about a Tumosu, where the state would give some money, you bring your gun, you register it. I think we got less than 1,500 guns or so. Subsequently, there have been other interventions, rates in Asua, in Bukuram, that does not net more than 15 or 14 guns. The bottom line is that the huge chasm between what the state perceives as the need to draw these guns out and public perceptions of their own security and the feeling that they need to have access to these guns. So let me give some specifics apart from those two. I think we need intelligence gathering and analysis as essential components of trying to get guns out of society. And this should happen both at operational and strategic levels. At the operational level, and this relates to Kweku's concern about the size of the country and therefore the challenges for logistics and personnel. But we need to have crime officers studying the data related to criminals, crime suspects, incidents, issues, and trends. Issues and trends are very key. Now, these things do not happen as a matter of routine performance assessment. We need to have a unit or units, focusing on these things. By collecting and assessing this type of data, officers can identify the relationships and the connections between different crimes in different places. So, the speed with which almost every murder of an important person is related or it is classified as armed robbery in itself is very disturbing because it diverts attention from the possible array of reasons that could have resulted or led to that murder. Okay? So that we need to understand the relationships and complex connections between different crimes in different places. Now, such approaches provide the insights that we need in understanding why what happens at particular times. You see, using such an intelligence approach means that we should be doing four main things that we have spent a lot of time on. One relates to strategic assessments, okay, tactical assessments, target profiles, and problem profiles. So if we take the problem profiles, for example, as I've said, the regional minister in Central Region, Mr. Duncan, a couple of days ago, was very concerned about levels of crime in the Kaswa-Buduburam area. Okay, now I wonder whether the concern that he expressed is something that has been taken on by his Regional Security Council and said, what are the changing trends with the expansion of Kaswa in unplanned ways that leads to and contributes to crime? So we need to bring on board more nuanced, more differentiated.
And that also comes to the proactive policing you are talking about. Because you said we are doing more reactive rather than proactive.
Yes.
Okay. So you were listing 4 points. I think you've listed one now. If you can just give us the points and then we move on.
And then target profiles.
Right.
Okay. Who are the people who are the targeted, or who are those who will be targeted or have the potential to be targeted? Okay. Now, if you look at the profiles of those who have been opportunistically targeted, but those who have specifically been targeted for what they do, okay, that also, helps us.
Okay.
Now, tactical assessments and then strategic assessments. What are the visions and missions of particular heads of units by law enforcement agents at a particular point in time? What do they seek to achieve so that the mission is sent down to officers who do the frontline fixing?
All right. Okay. So now please conclude on just a minute. The MPs, do we need to pay particular attention to their security? They are our representatives. We vote for them to go to Parliament to represent us.
Yes.
They deserve some special treatment, don't they?
No. Actually, it is their performance and their delivery in terms of placing the general security of the state at the top of their agenda. Because this is not new. It has been going on for a long time. That the public will say, wow, these are people that we voted for. They really do care. Let's provide them extra, protection. But once more, I'm asking these questions again. How often have they placed security on their agenda for discussion? How often have they spoken about the murders that Ghanaians are facing? How often have they spoken about the proliferation of small arms that threatens their ordinary, constituents? We are interested in protecting the parliamentarians, but it would be crucial and critical that they also, by their actions and words, send clear signals to the public.
They have asked the question. They have asked the question, why are we not doing equity? Why are we not treating them fairly? They are our elected representatives. They say judges are not elected, even though judges at a certain level are making policy and making law. We provide sufficient, as it were, this kind of security for them, as in police guards. Is that fair? A minister gets, this protection. Is it fair to them?
Yeah, no, I think it's very fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Let them demonstrate by the concerns that they show in terms of the debate on the floor of the House about the general security of the citizenry who voted for them in the first place. I don't think it's about the 275 police officers and then the cost. There is an ethical issue here. In the last 4 years, and I think your producer can check this from the Hansard, how often has security been on the agenda? How often has the murder of Ghanaian taxpayers been on the agenda? How often has small arms been on the agenda? Okay. There is a direct positive correlation.
Well, they've also asked the question legitimately, what exactly can they really do? Because we know that in this country, the executive president is like my friend Prof. Aning would say, he's an imperial, president. He decides what has to be done, and they in Parliament, what do they do? Now, Koku. So let's conclude on this question. So where do you stand? Can't the nation commit to 275 extra police officers, train them to provide guard duties for these MPs? Is that too much to ask?
Well, I happen to depart from Prof when it comes to this question, and I've always been clear on that. The last time JB Dan question came, there was public debate all over, and you can see here I said MPs need some form of protection. This is my Joy Online, 10th February 2016. I asked for a very dispassionate interrogation of that issue. I indicated, and I've said it here, that it's a very unpopular request. It's thrown out into the public domain, you will never win. And there are good reasons for that. Prof is trying to bring some up. Let's go check the Hansard. How many times? They've done some. I mean, why? They approve loans and things to equip the police, the security services for their training and all that. But yes, perhaps it is not sufficient or has not been sufficiently communicated to the public. That look, this is what our MPs have been dealing with in terms of the general environment relative to security. Look, it makes sense to say that if you improve national security in terms of the general security situation, the MP who is a subset of it will also get the benefits. It makes sense.
Right.
But there are also specific cases where you try to say, look, what can I do to at least, offer some form of protection? That's why I was going by the categorization in terms of residential, institutional, campaign, which is a subset of election security. So a very difficult thing, just like with the S. Garcia, no MP will win a public debate on that. And that's a very sad commentary, though. It may mean that perhaps we should be looking at the integrity lines of what our legislators and things are doing. But I am for some form of protection for members of parliament. Is
it fair, for example, for somebody to suggest that if the UN standard is that there should be one policeman for 500 people, then our MPs must ensure we have that before we get them, you know, a guard each?
No, not mutually exclusive. It is how you go about it, the strategic thinking that goes into it, the tactical blending. It is not mutually exclusive. But I'm saying that, yes, creating conditions for general security for the population should be the first principle.
Right.
In so doing, these are legislators who are also doing certain things, and we've had experiences of some of them have been subjected to attacks, some ending in fatalities.
Right.
We cannot ignore that.
That's right.
We can't. So we've got to find a way, a means of doing it.
I'll be reading messages to you shortly. We are taking a break, and I'll read some of the messages to you. People are asking questions. They say, well, unless an MP is in trouble or some politician or big public person gets into this kind of trouble, we hardly, discuss these matters. Meanwhile, every day, ordinary citizens are being subjected to these circumstances. People are getting killed, and we don't talk about that in the manner we do when it gets to MPs, and they say that is unfair.
For instance, Ahmed Swali's murder.
Yes, Ahmed Swali
was debated on the floor of the House.
Right.
I don't know if you are aware of that. On other incidents, Emmanuel Aning, former GJ, was debated. Yeah, it may be insufficient, and or perhaps have not been properly communicated. People sometimes don't take their, well, I can't blame them. How many people go and look for Hansard to try and do a research project on the feelings of MPs?
So I'd like to say thank you very much, Professor Kwesi Aning, for assisting us with your insights, as always, and expertise. We draw the curtains on this subject here and can only hope that the police will act swiftly and the general public will assist as much as possible so that the perpetrators will be apprehended. Yes, Kuku.
To the conspiracy theories to abate this whole trend. It's going on, left, right, center. We should rely on the police. Look, those with information should go and give the information to the police.
The conspiracy theory is what is emanating from the constituency, that it could have been masterminded by his opponent, and then some say it could have been masterminded by internal
it can distort police. People. It can distort police investigations. And then there's some information to that, I think, and it's difficult for a journalist talking this way because see, we all want information. Media houses, we go out there, the eyewitnesses, and everybody is talking to us. But there are some particulars that should be channeled to the police. Sometimes, look, the kind of vehicles they were using, but pretend you didn't see it. Let's go give that information to the police. These armed robbers, they also listen to radio.
That's right.
If they get to know that even their vehicles and things were identified, they could do some things with it. You know? And then the last point, I'm not sure if I heard my brother Aruna Edrusu very well. Did he say that the JB Dankwa murderers had not been identified?
Yes,
the
that's what he said.
No, but that's a house of records. You should know that's not true. Some people are on trial for that exercise.
There's a person on trial.
Yes, there's a person on trial. So you cannot say.
But people have generally said this guy is a joke. I mean,
no, he's a joke relative to the so-called confessions he's making. He's been coached in prison to put that out there. That's total rubbish. You should go for the original things he said to the police and how he was busted. He had the murdered MP's phones, which he had gone to clean up. He himself had injuries on him. So if you don't have it, I have the police report here from day one. And so that one, look, we've all been to prison before. When you get in there, there are bigger lawyers in prison, quote unquote. They coach. And so you come and you pollute the whole case. You create unnecessary distortions.
All right, thank you very much, Abdul Malik Okubako. So we take a break, we'll return, and then I'll share your messages on this particular subject. After that, we will be looking at the question of the chiefs. Prof. Aning, did you want to say something before you go?
Two very quick questions relating to Kweku's point. One relates to being coached in prison. We need to use prison intelligence much more in our investigations. Second, it's about the nature of the conspiracy theorists out there. We need better public-police relations so that we can share the critical information necessary for the proactive interventions.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our condolences go to the family, particularly the wife and the mother. And I have a friendship with some people where the mother presently was taking. And I can tell you it's not an easy thing for the family. It's a very difficult time for them. We wish that the perpetrator will be found in good time. And then the system will teach whoever it is that you don't do this to your fellow human being. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. So, as you know, this show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN, everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa, Consolidated Bank Ghana, we stand with you. Duraflas, where Duraflas goes, water flows. We lead, we build home for you. Star Assurance, that's your solid partner. And Rehoboth Properties. Now let me share some of your messages with you. Eja Adam says, something like this never happens coincidentally. The murder has the designs of a well-rehearsed and planned outline, which was executed by those people. We await the outcome of the investigations into the heinous crime against Honorable Eko Hayford. Then Dada Lincoln Abraham says, no, please, it is time for our politicians to be serious with the development of Ghana and stop the cosmetic politics and lies to Ghanaians, to deal with the real growing energetic youth who are unemployed but not increasing security for themselves. Okay, now Onassis says that the kind of guns the robbers of the Ejuretia episode held, I am still living with the nightmare having gone that close. They are not small arms. The police who came to the scene after the 1:30 minutes robbery were empty. That is Onassis Kobe. And he says he has been a victim. So we're talking about the arms, and we're talking about small arms and, you know, light weapons. And he's saying some of the guns they wield, they are not small arms. There's a research, that is the OEF research, that says that there are about 640 plus million guns in circulation, and about 100 million of that is in Africa, and we also suffer it. Now, this from Manche Bruce. Manche Bruce says, we live in a world that has walls, and unfortunately those walls need to be guarded by men with guns. But if you reveal your secrets to the wind, you should not blame the wind for revealing them to the trees. Prof. Aning and others must also adopt new strategies in training our security agencies. As trainers, they cannot continue to criticize the system without doing anything about it. My heart and thoughts are with the family of Eko Hayford at this time of great difficulty, Manche Bruce II in Takoradi. And I was talking about some relation that has gotten me to also know a bit more about. He's actually an only child, okay? And you can imagine what his mother is going through right now. He's an only child. Then let me share these other messages. Tarzan, that is Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, says that regulating problems of insecurity in Ghana when we should be hearing solutions. Bring on the state security capos. Okay. Then Eliasu in Tamale says, very unfortunate the murder of the MP. I trust the police to do anything under the sun to bring the perpetrators to book. I implore the public to divulge information to apprehend these criminals. There's no security breakdown as being alleged. Then IK, right. Teach MPs on how to handle firearms. Nobody can protect you better than yourself. Even if you have a bodyguard, he or she will not take a bullet for you. The person can be compromised as well. Protect yourselves, MPs. Mike J, is that it? Says by tweet, what am I hearing on news files? Security for our MPs. An MP's life is as important as any citizen of Ghana. The general insecurity in the country at the moment is sickening. Then Dr. Charles Rekubrobe again says the same rationale that allows the executive and judiciary to have state protection must be applied to the legislature. The arguments about cost and public sensitivity are not tenable. And as enforcement is responsibility already protected executive. Okay. Then, okay, so Ejadam, I've already read your message. Okay, so we can continue. Yakubu Ibn Chambers says that no amount of increased security will avert this issue of killings if Ghanaians do not take responsibility for self-security. I believe it is a right call by the members of the legislature for provision of state security, but I think that the 275 MPs could take self-domestic defense and protection very seriously. It is unacceptably wrong for the lives of our lawmakers to be tampered with. So that's from Yakubu Ibn Chambers. Thank you also very much for your messages. Now let's go to deal with the issue of chiefs who are dabbling in partisan politics and justifying same. What do you think about it? There are some of them who say they do not think that the Constitution actually, prohibits them from doing what they are doing. And there are others who say that provision of the Constitution is wrong. We must take it away and allow them to participate. Joining Abdul Malik Baako is Dr. Henry Seydou Dana. He is former Minister of Chieftaincy and Traditional Affairs. Dr. Seydou Dana, thank you for joining us. Hello, Doc.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Good to have you. Yeah. Now, before we go to the question as put out so clearly by Article 276, Clause 1, that says, a chief shall not take part in active party politics, and any chief wishing to do so and seeking election to Parliament shall abdicate his stool or skin. What exactly does that mean? Because some say it doesn't include a sort of a gagging order that they cannot endorse politicians or particular political party candidates and so on. Now let's begin by listening to these chiefs and what they have had to say on the subject matter.
Ahine hu nim fa so magana mayanke ni ho so ni hu nim fa so magana mayanke ga ni ni hu me ji se ni ana ya yesan se aba fro amayu kuone se de yesibu man na broni ba ene wo ho so ya sa ga e broni ba na ka me sam de na ke ba ho dan so me ji se dru ba bia na yen so yewre fini e de ho ma eno ka ho se ya nya manipa na hu se politicians ne nipa aka no ye na momedru ho na de de na nanu ne bebe ye ho a so me aso de ho kofrafra de a na ekofa asem na aba so mo se mo ko mo ya edu de na bebe yo ya na se be wu ya buto mu be ho se ya de ho kofrafra de a na wa ye nyina obia amayoko emidim so obia wode ope na so ye se wo menyi wani mu nkoye bi você também o bia aí nele e é se a casa foi puxo é movia muito a deve me é quase enquanto aba jo agora de amar quase and there who to me name mom see ya amayoko na you and mako jira we yachi na we yachi there am Ghana nhyehyɛ no kura me kwan saa name mom see ye ni a chebe be wo za de won de de emra no e ma ho kwan se eza se ukrom ho ubenya amayoko we ubenya amayoko we so mu nyina wo ho so ukrom ho na no obia o ba bia o ba no ho se ho ba se mo ti buda ba bia emwo o mu nyina so na nane ho o mu nyina so na nane ho nti ozo gina mfimfini na de okɔhye dem mo ne yesi fa ba no kotuma ka hodi obi ansu kwan de opebi a utimi ye ho so aso gina mfimfini mo aba ko duru ho na ko gina da ke mo na wo ko ba e obi ma ho e de wa ase da bia ye de ne sa aban a wo so ne ne ye adwuma so ye sa aban a wo so ono na e ye adwuma ono ne ye pempuntu dwuma ye penkoso ne bibia e de to nanimo so ono ne ye pempuntu dwuma ko so bibia ono na e de to nanimo nti yenyina wo se ehunu saa de no ne yemfia ho nkofrafrem na animonyam emra henie ma yenyina so yemfia saa de no so na ho ho se be ye na ma bodam aba dru ho na de na nanu ne bebe ho a so yemfia de ho nkofrafra de a na ekofa asem na aba so yenyina wo bia amayoko emidim so obia wo de ope na so yese wo menyi wani mu nkoye bi so ya me kwase yenkoto aba jo abako ne de ama kwase yenkoto and there wo hu to me na mom si ye ya amayoko na yu ani makogina wo ye chi na wo ye chi de am Ghana nhyehyɛ no kura me kwansa ye koyi na se idu apana so papa ana sante kan na no o se wadwuma nti sante ma be kai Yesu owura bia ye fe no lucky mensa ni domi osena Yesu nana twaso twaso ama efie na efie na okotra mu no a wo be so yie yensa ma wo tra mu bio na wo hanne na waba se ochini na Ghana ni na wo je be bia ya to oba na wo bia ni ho na wo watie di se ne Baako suku watie di se from a papa bo watie di se enda so wo ho na wo to oba e ma nto no ba yia we are seeing how to it no e na ka lucky mensa ni asira na to aso Baako e me den gramu osira okay obafe ake onye ofe men ofe chon
One of the promises you made that we are so happy about is your promise to legalize Okada. You said you will make sure it is regularized. If anyone tells you that they are against the legalization of Okada, then we don't agree with them. The reason why we don't agree with them is because we have traveled a lot, and even in China, in their bigger cities, some of these motorcycles and tricycles are used. So when you are voted, please ensure to see through this promise. We have also heard that you say you will pay assembly members. It is very good. Assembly members deserve a salary for the work they do. At least every month they must get something.
All right, so Dr. Dana, we have been listening to Otumfuo or Seitutu speak and advising the chiefs.
Yes.
But before that, he had also, President Akufo-Addo had been to him and he had made a statement which has been interpreted as overtly or covertly endorsing him, where he said that his good works will not be forgotten by Asanteman. Then we played you the sound of Ochehene Osajefo Amotia for Repenting, who didn't mince words at all, was very clear about the fact that the president deserves another 4 years because of his good works. And he actually predicated his support and endorsement on what Otumfuo had said earlier. Then we heard Osajefo Osiadeyo Ajiman Bedu II, the paramount chief, Doma, traditional area, also endorsing President Mahamad's policies. He spoke about the policies. So questions have been asked. Are they right to do what they are doing?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say good morning to my uncle Baako and Prof. Aning, whom I heard, and any other people who may be listening this morning. To be honest with you, I have not been a very happy man. There are several of things sometimes I hear radio about chieftaincy, and one is this issue you picked up on the politics. But there are others. A radio station has called to ask me on Kumasi last year about suggestions. Some people think chiefs in Ghana should be paid salary. And why that should not be. I mean, don't I think that is what is my view? And just recently, I heard on the radio, and it's like I heard something to the effect that a law should be passed to make chiefs in Ghana equal status. You see, when I hear these things, I feel sad because it simply means people don't understand where we are. If a state, a Ghanaian state, the Ghanaian state, which has existed for a very long time, which we've come from somewhere, we've gone far, we've got to a point. There are certain fundamental principles that have been erected, making the state a state. But let me speak on the chieftaincy side. And some of the fundamental principles are that chiefs should not participate in active party politics. And the idea being that if you look at our African chieftaincy, the chief is like the protector and the voice, the spokesman of the community. So in areas where you don't have police stations, if there is danger in the village, everybody runs where? To the chief's house. And when the chief speaks, he's not an ordinary person. His speech is going to reflect the community or to represent the community. So these are some of the reasons why, and I don't believe in just trying to interpret the black and white letters of the law. We should look at the letter and spirit or the background. So my understanding is that every chief is a Ghanaian who is a Ghanaian is entitled to have a political opinion. Of course, you can vote. I mean, of course, they are Ghanaians and citizens. But the issue is about publicly. When you come out publicly to, that's where there can be a problem. And assuming that the chief in my village is openly supporting Party A, and I happen to be Party B, then there is something happening. Everybody has to run to the chief as the father. You will find that those who will be in the Party B may not want to go there because they think that man may not open up to them. And that is a worry. There is not enough time for me to probably take you through of 80. But the problem that we are touching with about is that just if one happens, it is the time of King Agri and King Kokwata, how it rolled on to 1896 when Otumfor Brampet I was taken to social. And what happened, the Battle of Adibo, 1896, between the Germans, the Gombes, and 1900 between the British and the Ashantis. That will give a certain picture of where we've gone far. That we got to Ghana, that's the state. And there was trouble between our first president and chiefs, some big chiefs. And you would find that it's all because distrust. Anytime that there's distrust between chiefs and government, it has brought about trouble in the country. It's always in the interest of all of us that there should be understanding and trust. But the moment there's mistrust between government and chiefs, the government in power and chiefs, there's trouble. And it is to avoid that kind of situation that you will find that the Office of Native Agriculture was set up in 1900, which became Chieftain Commission after the independence, and which later became the Chieftain Secretariat in 1961. And you see that the aim has always been to do what? Put that office directly under the office of the president. The idea being that the issues are so sensitive that there should be direct contact. Well, in 2006, we are going for a ministry. It's no more a secretariat or a commission. It's now a ministry. And if you remember, the main arguments put forward that time was that if we have a minister for chieftaincy, he will be able to bring in resources. He will be able to fight for the chiefs. You know, the chiefs' entitlement. I don't know if today protagonists of that view, whether they would think that that has been achieved. You know, the point I'm making is that I don't know if the reason that chiefs will do politics, are we sure that that will bring them what they want? And the whole dogma, the basis that we've run this system over the years. What is it that has happened that we should let our fathers go in and play the game with the children?
But what do you say to those who say that we are simply asking the chiefs to act hypocritical, that they should have political opinions but not express them publicly? That's to call them upon them to be hypocritical.
No, I don't think so. When you occupy a skin or a stool, you are no more an ordinary person. That's what I explained. You have assumed a certain role. And it is that role that behoves you to do what you are doing, to act that way. You know, for instance, when you are a statesman, your utterances, somebody may make you angry, somebody may say you don't, but you have a duty to put it in a certain manner. That's where I'm coming from. And you see, take for example, I am somebody who supports the institution of chieftaincy. I believe in it. But make no mistakes, there are also some people in this country who don't like the institution. And so my advice to people is that we, those who are for the institution, we should sometimes know how to, for instance, as per stand, I think what the chiefs in this country need is resources. Even the allowances, sometimes it takes a long time. People who they are student money, sometimes they are not paid for a very long time. And in some of the areas where the chiefs don't have minerals, I'm not insulting, but just put it like this, they are poor. And being a chief is not easy. If we have decided to keep chieftains, let's support them to perform. I think resources is what I think is what they have been staffed of. Well, my point is, let's find out why in the first place were chiefs, the law made that chiefs not. What was the reason? I still change.
The communications director at the presidency announced through a media interview on Star FM that 95% of the chiefs have endorsed the candidature of President Akufo-Addo to get a second term. 95% of them. I don't know how he arrived by that calculation, but that's what he says. Now, that should, however, give you the impression that this thing is very widespread. There are people who have looked at what happened when he went to the Talensi area, for example, and they say, oh, that chief or the paramount chief there was already a member of parliament for the NPP, so if he had become a chief and Akufo-Addo goes there and he tells him that he will win because that's how they have found, by divination, so to speak, we shouldn't be surprised. Now, you are saying that a chief who was an MP in a particular political party and has now become a chief, and that party is in government and the president is visiting him, what will he say that anybody will separate him from or put him in a point of neutrality, such a chief?
Well, let me say something. You have only given one scenario.
Yeah.
And that chief is one out of, we have over, I believe we have over 300 paramount chiefs now. You know, it's just a one scenario, but I'm talking about generality. Chiefs, Dobby and politics have always been there over the years, but it has been, it's not the norm. It has been like, when it happens, sometimes behind the scenes, there are ways of, you know, solving it out. But if we are not talking about, I should say, we are talking about now being generalizing it, which that's why my worry, generalizing it. Let me ask the question. I can't ask you a question. I'm answer the question, but let me pose a certain situation. You know very well that it's not for nothing that chiefs are. The constitution has made it put certain. There's a reason. You see, you can see that recently, sometimes you will find that there's a misunderstanding between political parties. And the eminent, this has been done by the Asante once. He tried, they will go before him and the matter will resolve. Now, assuming that we adopt a system whereby chiefs openly make their stance known, and this person is NBC, this chief is NPP, this chief is TPP. You see, don't you think that will come to a time that if there's a misunderstanding between our politicians, the chiefs too will not be in a position to solve it, to mediate? And
no, I asked that question regarding the earlier I had asked about the issue whether we are actually inviting the chiefs to play, you know, hypocrisy. Because if I refer to the Tongran, for example, you can take the same case for, say, the Ochehene, where you know, the son of that place has the opportunity to become, you know, the president. So what is your expectation? That publicly he should not say he supports him, and then the people will believe that he doesn't support him, or what?
We seem to go back and say that. I've told you that I believe we are talking about generalities. When you pick on one person, that's not good enough.
Now we are using examples. Those who have demonstrated a setting by their comments. So we are picking them and using them as examples to make their discussion.
So the point I'm making is that I raised the certain situation. It will come to a point that our fathers, the chiefs, will have a problem and they cannot solve it. Somebody, it is the first somebody said that then they can bring in the AU or the UN. Yeah, but you see, doesn't mean we cannot solve our own problem. And at that point, if the AU or the UN comes in, the question will be, where are their great chiefs? Don't forget that in Africa we have given ourselves a certain name about our chieftaincy. Ghana is the only country in Africa that you find 80% of the land belonging to chiefs, right? And we are happy. We are happy. We have taken that path. You see, if we look at Article 267 of the Constitution, the two lands, the affected in they belong to the schools. It's not government. So the government wants land, they go to they choose the land, but the land belongs to the schools, and there's a history behind it. Starting from the time of Aboriginal Rights Protect Society through Asaf something that led to the exile of chiefs wars. So if we are going to change some of these things, I think, it's my view, I think we should take time. Change comes and change will always come, but the way it comes.
Right. So
let me just add this. You see, take for example, what about if chiefs start doing politics and Article 270 set aside? What about if some people start saying that, why don't the chiefs hand the lands over to the president of the public to manage it for us?
Okay.
How about that?
Okay. Now,
you see, I think that sometimes tradition, to change tradition, it takes time.
All right. Okay, so let's get the views of Baako, and then I'll come back to you. And Kweku, one of your favorite books when it comes to the question of chieftaincy. I'm surprised you didn't bring it today. You always bring it. Oh, okay. You have made photocopies of the relevant portions. Okay, so it refers to the laws of chieftaincy in Ghana, and this is by Justice Alan Brobe. Now, in page 34, he writes that when a person becomes a chief, his life is not fully his own. His private life is subject to the dictates and demands of the stool, the skin, the customs and traditions of the people over whom he is a chief. Many of the things which he has to do will be subordinated to the dictates of the customs of the people. I know where you stand already, because it is a standing rule for you. For the many years I have listened to you, you think this is ugly and it must stop. But why? Because the chiefs are the agents of development for the people.
Yeah. See, a chief can acknowledge the delivery of development projects by a government to his people, a community, and even ask for more. But what the Constitution doesn't allow the chief to do is to proceed beyond that premise and publicly endorse a party, a candidate, or a sitting president when he is a presidential flag bearer fighting for re-election, as we have today and we did have in 2016. And this thing, this subculture, and I have to choose my words carefully, I know, that it is of some nuisance value. You know, cuts across the political divide, and the politicians appear to be enjoying it. There's a history to why the 1992 Constitution brought into being Novel Justice Broby, the book you were referring to, does it very well. Article 276 and Article 94 3C are novel. They've never appeared in any of our previous constitutions. And there's a history why we decided as a people to try as much as possible and insulate chieftaincy from the implications and repercussions of partisan politicking or politics. See, we don't have time, so I will just be using one or two examples. And going back to history before I come to the modern days. This is a Daily Graphic, Saturday, October 2nd, 1957. Headline, Ochinhene, I will be neutral in politics. The Ochinhene Osagyefo Oforiatta II declared at Chibi yesterday that now that politics in Ghana have taken a new shape, he will not give his support to one political party as against the other. He made a statement at an emergency meeting of the Standing Committee of the Ochimman Council. The committee was discussing, and note, the decision of the National Liberation Movement to convert the movement into a political party. That's what the Ochinhene then meant, the new twist in our politics. See, another one here. October 23rd, 1957. Cabinet is to discuss Ochinhene. And I'm sure the minister was referring to some things. He consciously didn't give specific names, and I understand why. The Prime Minister, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, yesterday gave the undertaking that he will consider with his cabinet as soon as possible the government's withdrawal of recognition from the Ochinhene Osagyefo Oforiatta II. The government interfering in that institution. You understand?
And something had happened.
A lot.
Yes.
Government says...
And Nkrumah was deliberate about trying to infiltrate and bring them down.
Because he had a history of problems with some of them in the course of the independence movement.
And he had promised to deal with them.
Where he said the chiefs will run away and leave their sandals behind. Now this is June 7th, 1958. Government say Ochinhene's recognition not to be restored. Appointment of Dankwa cancelled. Revenue for state is withheld. You get a point? And many more. And this is just a classic example. Nkrumah had plenty problems with even the Asante Council. To the extent they got to a state of 2-4 then, actually more or less wiped out the Bafu Akoto Osei's stool. It's all here, it's published here. Not just Nkrumah, subsequent to Nkrumah, because Nkrumah government ended up destooling some of the chiefs and installed new ones. So when the NLC took over, they also went on that screen by trying to restore some of the people and destooling other chiefs that were perceived.
Some of those problems have followed us to today.
Exactement. So that's the history. In the Champon era, these chiefs, I mean, they are enormous. When the Unigov campaign was put out there, they were all over the place. Look, the highest level of chieftaincy sycophancy was displayed then. And yet, they are subject. You can't unite your subjects when you conduct yourself that way. Justice Broby has explained it fantastically here. So we came to the juncture, in terms of our history, that look, let's insulate this institution. I'm a Republican. I don't have too much love or admiration for chieftaincy. But because I'm a realist, and the Constitution has guaranteed their existence, and as a Democrat, I must accept the reality and live with it. But you see, when we did all this, our chiefs continuously, with impunity, violate the Constitution as well as the Chieftaincy Act. They appear not to give a damn. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but they don't mind anybody. And it is not good. Look, the attribute, one key attribute of a chief is the wisdom that you must bring to bear on your conduct and in your community.
A conciliator.
Yes. You must unify your community. So if you mount a political platform, or if a party sets up a certain debate or whatever, and you go there, go beyond acknowledging delivery of development projects to your community and asking for more, but proceeding to endorse a candidate, whether a presidential one or a non-presidential one, it's against the spirit, the letter and spirit of this constitution. Now let's go into the Constitutional Review Commission. This matter came up and was discussed thoroughly. And the commission had to come to the stage and say, look, active party politics actually is not properly defined or sufficiently defined in the constitution. Justice Brobe also admits that. But don't forget, Justice Brobe was a member of the Consultative Assembly. I think he was the chairman of the Legal and Drafting Committee. Interestingly, if you go into the Constitutional Review Commission, they dealt with the matter and they tried to give some meaning. And I would want to read that portion. This is paragraph 116. It says, the commission observes that the Legal and Drafting Committee of the Consultative Assembly attempted to define what constitutes participation in active party politics by chiefs as follows. Active party politics means A, being a member of a political party, B, standing for election to any office to which a person may be elected as representative of a political party, C, holding office in or forming a political party. Now the two most relevant ones are here. D, listen carefully, it says speaking in public or publishing anything in writing to the public for or against a political party or the candidate of a political party in any election. E, contributing in cash or in kind towards the funds of a political party or conducting oneself in public in a manner likely to suggest identification with or opposition to a political party. You get my drift? And Justice Brobe, who was that, you know, any court litigating on this or dealing with this matter will be going back to look at what the Consultative Assembly proceedings and definitions were. This is what Justice Brobe points out. This is Article 276 and 94.3c are some of the novel provisions in the 1992 Constitution. No similar provision appeared in any of the previous constitutions of the Gold Coast or Ghana. From the knowledge of the author, as a member of the Consultative Assembly and chairman of the Legal and Drafting Committee of that assembly that produced the current 1992 Constitution, it can be stated with some certainty that the policy reasons that led to the enactment of these provisions were this. First, a chief is a person who unites his subjects and all persons living in his domain. If he takes active part in party politics, he will divide the people under him between those who support his chosen political party and those who do not support his party. Now, after we've done all this, and this is part of the country's problem, the white paper, the government white paper, interestingly, this is what the government white paper said in chapter 10. Traditional authorities. Issue 5, chiefs and active party politics. Government accepts the recommendation that Article 277 of the Constitution be amended to define concisely the meaning of active party politics in Article 276 of the Constitution. Consequently, government accepts further that the active party politics be defined to mean, quote, openly and personally joining or taking part in the activities of a political party by wearing their paraphernalia and associating with the executive and members of that party, mounting party platforms to galvanize support for the party at their meetings, a chief being a card-bearing member of a political party, and also holding an executive position in a party at any level. You see, even this government, the white paper, veered a little away from the recommendation D&E, the Consultative Assembly's definition. Some cowardly retreat. Like, oh, just put something there, but it is still not stringent. And that's what I think the politicians love. And this report, this white paper, I'm sure it's in abeyance. because there was supposed to be an implementation committee.
That's right.
I don't know the status. I have to be honest with you. I tried double checking yesterday. I couldn't get much.
Well, at the Attorney General's department, they suggest that they pick portions, bits and pieces, as and when it is necessary to look at. But so far, they've not. They've not pursued anything in it yet.
How much did we spend? We spent millions of dollars.
Yes.
To do this, and that's the point I'm making. That's subculture. We do things, fine things. We are not lost, beautiful ones, and then we are unable to enforce them. And here's Constitutional Review Commission. Was for me an important landmark in terms of our constitutional evolution. But we're treating it with kid gloves.
That's right.
So the chiefs are out there running route, to be honest with you, misconducting themselves. I didn't want to say they have become a bunch of licensed irritants. I didn't want to say that. But that's the hard fact. And it's about time they are told so in their face. Okay. Look, in their faces, it doesn't matter which chief. Okay? High, low, middle, it doesn't matter. The principle is non-negotiable. This constitution went to a referendum.
Right. Dr. Dana, from the Constitution Review Commission's, recommendations and the white paper that came out, thankfully you were part of the government then. Do you take the view that the $6 million we sunk into this project should go to waste by not doing the amendments and redefinition to better clarify the Article 176, Clause 1 properly, so that chiefs 276 properly, so that the chiefs are clearly in the know that they cannot be doing the things they are doing that you are not happy about?
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Dana.
I beg your pardon. I didn't get to the line click.
Okay, the Constitution Review Commission was clear that we needed, to re-emphasize the definition by adding and specifying the clear prohibition from active participation in partisan politics.
Yes.
And then the white paper accepted same and went ahead to suggest how we could couch the amendment.
Yes.
In the absence of that, do you think there's any problem with the provision at all?
You see, let me first say this. I was minister from 2012 to 2016. And I had authority as a minister to deal with some of these things, and I did. But before 2013, I was the chief research officer of the country. And my role then was a very different one. It was like academic or legal. So sometimes when I'm expressing my views about chieftaincy, my articles, I always make it clear sometimes certain things you will say as a matter of interest for the nation, principle, knowledge, not necessarily politics. So this question you're asking about the provision, the National Review Commission. It's true that I was the director when it happened. But to be honest with you, if you ask me how it ended or the position it go to, I don't think I will be in a position to, unless probably I do some further searches myself. But all my role was at that time to facilitate the research, the meetings, and that kind of thing. But I didn't really have any opinion to offer at that time. But all what I'm saying is that I think that, look, if you permit me, let me just refer something to Blackburn and Attorney General in the United Kingdom, 1974, when the UK decided to join the EEC, which later became the EU. Blackburn went to court on the grounds that it was unconstitutional by the British Constitution for the British Parliament to take Britain into the EEC. because of the Article 4 of the Rome Treaty. The Article 4 said that once a member cannot withdraw. And for Blackburn, that was unquestioned because the British Parliament, although unwritten, is clear that no Parliament can limit the power of a future Parliament. And the judgment that Lord Jordan gave, I always refer this to the chieftaincy in Ghana. You see, he said the legal theory is there, that legal theory sometimes give way to practical politics. And that whether one day Britain can leave the EEC or not because of Article 4 is a matter of wait and see. But that he knows that if the act that they passed and gave independence to Australia, gave independence to the West African British colonies in the 1950s, 1940s, that can a parliament in Britain in 1960 passed a law to revoke those purportedly independent granted. Can they revoke it? Because of this principle that no parliament can limit the power of a parliament. And so we should wait and see. And now, you witness what is happening in the UK now.
Dr. Dana.
Yeah.
You earlier spoke about the conversation about paying chiefs salaries.
Yes.
A position that you don't exactly endorse.
Yes.
What is this thing about presidents, dashing cars to the chiefs? What is it about?
Well, what I know is that there's a history behind it. You see, when I joined the children's service in 1994, September, in fact, we've gone far. That time, the place was not having resources, and I'm used to that somebody advised me not to go to join the chieftain because I have a PhD in law, and that place is not for people who have learned people to go and work. I should go to law firm commission also. But I asked myself, but if the place is not having learned people and you have got the knowledge, why don't you go and make the place better? So gradually, because of this conflict that happened in the north, the Gomba North, resources were pumped in. But since then, as and when government can come in and help. So I remember there were cars that were brought and given to the houses. During President Kufuor's time, some cars came. So it's like time to time thing that happens that a government can give vehicles. You see, but let me say something. That I think is different. Those vehicles normally will come to the secretariat or the ministry to be given out. But if a car is given to a chief direct from the presidency, that one, I will say that then those type of cars are even not captured in the vehicle pool of the ministry.
So do you find just in a minute so that you can take leave of us, do you find that the chiefs sometimes have their eyes on some of these goodies, so to speak? Well, it's our money, public money that the presidents use, but we find them buying cars and giving to some of the chiefs. And so you want to look good in the books of the president so that you get what you want. I mean, private benefits. And it's a ritual. Almost every election cycle, they are giving cars, and sometimes they flaunt them. We get to know that the presidents are handing them cars.
That's exactly why I made a comment earlier that if any chiefs are listening to me, we should watch out. You see, if you look at the history of Ghana, a government being friends with chiefs is only for a period. And the consequences sometimes that follow is devastating. There's no time to go back. But since 1850, this thing has started. It has brought about conflict wars. Whenever you have trust between government and of the day and chiefs, it's good. But the time that you have distrust between the Christian government, there's trouble. And we don't want that.
Okay.
We don't want that.
All right.
It's said that what is physically impossible cannot be made possible by legislation. You can't legislate to take the sea from Accra to Tamale.
Dr. Seydou Dana, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us on this subject matter. We take a break, but when we return, we'll listen to Dr. John Osai Kwapong, who is a political scientist and member of the IRIS Research Consortium. He was billed to spend an hour with us on independent MP candidates phenomenon, whether it is good or bad. He has a lot of knowledge and expertise to share on that subject matter, but time is very limited, so we'll deal with that exhaustively, God willing, next week. But for now, when we return, he has perspectives on the matter of chiefs endorsing the presidential candidates all over the country. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is News Filey, your most authoritative news analysis platform. And now let's bring you the perspectives of Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, political scientist. He's also Executive Director, Research Methods, Made Easy Incorporated. Doc, thank you so very much for your patience, and thanks for agreeing for the subject of the independent candidate phenomenon to be discussed next week. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, Samson. No problem at all. My pleasure.
Great. Okay, so our audiences have been very excited to hear you, because I think they have become familiar with how you deal with issues. So what is your take on the questioning of the chiefs and the manner in which they are getting into the political fray?
Okay, good morning once again, Samson. Good morning to all of your viewers. As I observe this issue of our chiefs and their role in our democratic spaces, especially when it comes to election time, about a week ago I was saying to myself, I wonder why we still have a ban on our chiefs engaging in active politics. I especially appreciated the thoughts that Otumfuo expressed, which is there's a certain reality that our chiefs are just as, they are citizens just like ourselves, which means that in a multi-party democracy, chiefs who are also citizens will have a political preference, will definitely participate in voting, and will definitely cast a ballot for a candidate for either of the two main political parties or any other parties that are contested in the election. But you realize that the thing that he said, among the many things that was very insightful, is the fact that it is a question of how does the chief then display his or her preference publicly versus privately. I think that you would notice that customarily, by tradition, when our elected officials, government officials, MPs, etc., whenever they show up in a town, they make sure that they pay the customary homage, they go, they greet. When it's not an election year, it's a very beautiful cultural ritual. They go, they greet, the chiefs receives them well. If there's something that has been done, the chiefs do express their gratitude. If there's something that they need, they would make it known to the government. During election years, it takes a very, very different turn. For me, the biggest thing that I worry about is that I think in the midst of partisan politics and partisan conversations, that you need certain actors who play what I call mediating roles. And so for me, one of the key institutions in our democratic space that can play that mediating role is the institution of chieftaincy. And so when they appear or citizens begin to perceive them as being overtly partisan, then I wonder what that does, or I worry about what it does in terms of the confidence that it undermines in these institutions. The other point I also want to add is that if you look at the Afrobarometer survey, one of the things that I always point out is that typically there is a trust deficit when you look at our key democratic institutions. However, certain institutions do better than others when it comes to the level of trust that citizens repose in them.
Right.
Traditional authorities and elders are one of them. And so I worry that if this phenomenon continues and intensifies, what does that do for the amount of trust that ordinary citizens repose in these institutions, which I believe have a very critical role to play in mediating sometimes some of the heated partisan conversations that endure, especially during elections time. So for me, that's, as I observe the phenomenon, I think those are some of my biggest worries in terms of what this does in the relationship between the chieftaincy institution and citizens and their role in our democratic space.
What do you say about the other fear or risk that once they do that, they are opening themselves up to be subjected to the ugly partisanship we see in this country, which is not about issues, it's about insulting personalities. So people abuse the president, people abuse the opposition candidate, and people who do not have anything to get any close to what they have achieved in life can afford to just bear insult them, vilify them, and abuse them in a manner that you cannot think about, that the chiefs will be putting themselves in that way. Meanwhile, by Section 63 of our Chieftaincy Act, if you insult a chief, either by word or conduct, you are committing an offense and you could be punished criminally.
It's a very real concern, right? Because once you begin to show your partisan hand, then you become subject to some of the things that quote-unquote partisans are subjected to. But you would also notice that in our culture, in our tradition, chiefs have always been one of the sort of highly respected, revered personalities of people within the space, right? I'm reminded of, I think back to years ago, there was an episode of TV theater in which a citizen, in this town has an issue with the chief. And as he gets up to address the chief, the title of the chief was Dasebre, but he gets up to address the chief and he calls the chief Opong Chichiku, much to the consternation of everybody in the audience. And he looks at the chief and he says, sure, you are Dasebre, but today I choose to call you Opong Chichiku. My concern then is, at what point do we lose that reverence for our chiefs because they have become another player in our overtly political partisanship, that people would start addressing them in a way that undermines both the respect and the authority that they have. And again, that for me becomes a very big worry. But it also appears that there is this gentleman's agreement between the political parties that in election year we will make that exception. We would enjoy the endorsement of the chiefs. It becomes part of the context to see who is getting how many endorsements from which chief, from which area. But again, it is a very worrying.
The Ochehene proposes that this is not right to chiefs, and so we should amend the constitution and allow them the freedom to be able to do the things that they want to do as far as participating in politics is concerned. The other side of the coin is that, like in 2011, for example, the Supreme Court struck down the power of a chief to summon you, and if you refuse the summons, then you would have been guilty of a crime and you would have been punished. They struck it down. The suggestion is that then, if anything like that were to happen, then they will lose the other protections that they have, like where if somebody insulted them by word or by conduct, you are looking to go to jail for about 3 months, or you pay a fine of 2,400. So are they ready to cede off that sort of reverence that they have, which is now protected by law? Are they thinking about that as well?
Very good question. And again, it's if you think about it from the perspective of, well, I am a citizen who wants to engage in partisan politics, and therefore my being a chief should not constrain me from being overtly politically partisan, then I think that the Ochehene has a point in terms of how he's framing it, that if everybody can do it, why prevent us from engaging in these same political rituals open to citizens? But I believe that there also is a certain rationale why the framers of the Constitution, having looked at our chiefs, their role in their respective communities, felt the need to constrain them in terms of how much involved they get in our everyday politics, especially in election year. If you allow them to engage in, then the question becomes, what are the consequences of that? And for me, I go back to, what does that do, one, for the amount of trust we repose in them to be impartial mediators in our local communities when issues come up. And the other thing then I also worry about is, if they also become overtly politically partisan like the rest of us, then who is left as an institution to every so often play that fair and impartial arbiter role in our political conversations? And for me, we can't lose that when it comes to the institution of chieftains.
All right. Some have actually said that if we did that, we're going to lose our heritage, a very important heritage. But Kuku, you know, in 2016, the Right to Information Bill that Parliament was considering, there was a provision that we should let it affect chiefs so that they will be accountable by law for how they use mineral resources, how they deal with land, which they are supposed to hold in trust for the people. We understood that one of the difficulties why they couldn't proceed with that law was that the chiefs didn't want that to be there. They didn't want to be held accountable by law, so to speak. If we give them the opportunity to come in, then we will have the right to demand this from them.
I hear you. But I tell you something, it's a zero option. We should not give them the opportunity to come in. The Constitution gives them an avenue. You can abdicate. If you are a chief and you are so interested in indulging in partisan politics, this same Constitution, 2761, says you can abdicate and then go and do your politics. Dr. Liman, the great, of blessed memory, he was a chief. Okay, is it Gwalu traditional area? Golu, yeah. Golu. He abdicated to run for the 1992, 93 elections, 92 elections rather. So we have examples. Look, a chief takes part in politics to the extent that they go into the polling station to vote, but they vote in secret. They don't campaign. You're subject. You can't, look, they can't even deliver what they are promising the politicians. That my people will vote for you. They can't deliver it. How do you know your people will vote? When they go into the ballot box, ballot place.
The Ochehene seemed to tell his people that when you go in there, this is the way to vote. Don't vote other way.
It's a mission impossible. You cannot guarantee 100% turnout, people voting for the candidate you want. You can't. So why even mess up doing that? And I'm not talking here of individual chiefs. I'm looking at the general principle.
All right. Thank you very much. And this is where we draw the curtains. And Kwaku Baako remember his own friend, Nibia Ibonte, the Gbeshi chief. He had promised that, Gbeshi Manche, he had promised that if President Mahama didn't win, he will abdicate. And the consequences were dire for him after he turned the other way around.
The journalists went looking for him for an interview, and he dodged. He ran away.
All right, so this has been Newsfile, and thank you so much.